Hey everybody, this is Games Plus James, and welcome back to our Unity Endless Runner tutorial series, where we're making a brand new and fun endless running game for having fun and doing adventures. So yes, in today's episode, we're going to take a look at adding the ability for our player to restart the level when you die. So when you fall off, at the moment we have, when the characters run along, once it starts playing here, we'll see once you run along, you fall down there, you hit the ground, you just kind of keep going, which is handy for our testing purposes, but that's not what we want to happen in the game. So we're going to create a little system that will restart the player back to the start of the game. And the way we're going to do that is by adding a new script called Game Manager to the game, and this will be what's used to handle restarting the game and handling a few other things that we'll come across in for future episodes of the series. So for now, we're going to go into our scripts folder, create a new C# script, and we're going to call this Game Manager. And we're just going to wait for that to load and open that up in MonoDevelop. So we're going to need a couple of things to start off with to restart a game. So the things that change as our player goes along is that the where's our player? So we have our player's position. He starts off here, and also we have the platform generator, which starts off here. And as things goes along, the player moves along forward, and the platform generator also moves along forward. The camera moves forward too, but that just depends on where the player is. So what we'll need to do is, when the player dies, we need to reset the player back to his start position and reset the platform generator back to its start position as well. And also within our player, we'll need to reset, where do we have it here? If we go to debug, his speed milestone counter. So basically the point at which he's speeding up and all that stuff. And we need to reset his move speed as well, back to the first speed that he started off with. Or else he'll be if you get really far in the game and the player gets really, really fast, then you go back to the start and suddenly you can go, you're starting off going super fast, and that's not fair for a player when he's restarting the game. So we're going to go into our Game Manager script, and so our stuff like our milestone counter, we're going to change that within the player itself rather than doing it from our Game Manager script. So in here, we're going to need to change just where the player starts off with and where the platform generator starts off. So to do those things, we need to know what is the platform generator. So we're going to say public transform platform generator. And the way we're going to store where the platform generator starts is we're going to use a private vector tree for the platform start point. So that'll be where we're going to set that, so that's where the platform starts at. Then we need to do the same with our player. So we'll do, to get our player, we'll have a private player controller, which is what the script that we use for our player. So a private player controller, and we'll call this the player. And then we'll use a private vector tree, just like we did for the platforms, private vector tree for a player start point. And then in our start function, what we're going to say is, okay, we need to find out where those things are. So our platform start point will just be equal to our platform generator dot transform. Oh no, it's already a transform, so don't even need to say dot transform. Just platform generator dot position. And the exact same for the player, except it'll be player start point is equal to the player dot transform dot position. And the reason we have to add the transform in there is because the platform generator itself is already a transform, so you don't have to say get the transform part of it. But our player is just a player controller, so we have to get the transform that's attached to that. So straight away at the start, that'll get those positions first. So we're just going to save the game, and we're just going to show that that's working just fine for us. And to do that, of course, we need to create a new object that our Game Manager script is going to be attached to. Just waiting for that last script to compile. Oh, create the object inside the player. That's not what we want. We want it out here on the top layer. So we don't want it to be a child of anything else. And we're going to call this our game manager. And we're going to add that script then. Oh, that's handy. It's already selected for me. We just want to turn this back off of debug mode. So we've got a platform generator. Oh, I made the player private. I should have made this public. So save that again. Back in here. And we should get an extra slot popping up. There we go. Okay, so we'll drag our platform generator into there, and that's the position of that. And we'll drag our player into there. And the reason you make it a player controller object is because, first of all, we're going to want to change a few of the player's variables maybe ourselves, but also so that, say, we couldn't drag something else in, like this platform one, we're not able to drag that into there because it's looking for specifically an object with the player controller script attached to it. So if we put this back on debug and we play the game, we should get a value right here for all those things. So there we go. There's our platform start point, and that's where our player starts from. At the moment, he kind of starts up in the air a bit. Maybe we should make him start on the ground. There we go. Okay. Put this back on normal. Leave it on our game manager and go back into actually doing some stuff. So for our restarting the game, we're not going to use the update function there. We're going to create a new method here that we call public void restart game. And the reason we're creating this is so that it can be called from another script. So, for example, what we're going to do is call it from the player controller script. And it's going to be called whenever the player falls down off the screen and touches that little box at the bottom. What am I doing here? I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Okay, so what we're going to do, I should actually explain myself rather than just starting typing things out. We're going to use a thing called a coroutine. And a coroutine is basically a little method that will go off and run by itself. And it kind of runs independently of the rest of our script. And the reason you want to use a coroutine is because with a coroutine you can add in some time delays. So we're going to need, when our player dies, we don't want him to instantly teleport back to the start, or else it'll be very confusing for a player. What you want is like a little bit of a delay so they have a second to realize, oh, this is where I died, that's bad, and then it goes back to the start. So you can't just do that by it wouldn't say the update loop or anything like that. Well, there's ways you could do it, but it's an awful lot more complicated than it needs to be. So instead, we'll use a very simple little system called a coroutine. So what we're going to do is, rather than starting our coroutine first, we're going to create a coroutine, and the way you do that is say public to make it public, and we're going to use a thing called enumerator, and we're going to call this restart game co. And you can call it anything you want, but we just call it restart game co because this is the one that's going to be associated with restart game, and it's a coroutine. And we're going to put a bunch of code in here. And the way we start this coroutine is within this restart game function, we just say start coroutine, and then in brackets and in between quotation marks we say restart. We say the name of the coroutine we want to start. So that's restart game. Typing things in the wrong place here. Restart game go. Just like that. Okay. So we have these values that we want to use, which is the platform generator position and the player position, and we want to set them back to be the start. So the way we would do that is just say the player dot transform dot position is equal to player start point, and then similarly the platform generator. If I could spell, platform generator dot position is equal to platform start point. So basically just the opposite of what we said in our start function up here. And like I said, we want to add a little bit of a delay onto our player. So here we're going to say yield return new wait for seconds. And basically this is how you add a little bit of a delay to your coroutine. And we're going to set this to be just half a second, so 0.5 f. And we'll use some semicolon there to end the line. So there we go. What will happen is this thing will get called, and it'll wait a second, and then it'll reset everything back to the start. But what we're going to end up with then is that, say our player character, he falls down the bottom of the screen, and the way we have it set up right now, for example, he falls to the bottom of the screen, but we can still see him. He's not doing anything. You can see the top of his head. So we want to make sure that the player goes invisible and then he gets moved back. So what we're going to say is the player dot game object dot set active, and then in brackets false. And that will make sure that the player object becomes inactive and it gets turned off, and we won't be able to see anything. But of course, if we're going to move all this stuff around, we need to make sure that our player gets turned back on again, or else our game won't know what to do with anything. So here we're going to say the player, at the very end of it, we say the player.gameObject.set active. Oh no, I didn't say dot set active, and in brackets true. So then we know it's true, and it'll get set back to the start. So we're going to save this, and for now that's enough of what we need there. There'll be a couple more things to add, but we'll deal with that as we come to it. So now we have a reset function going, but at the moment there's no way for our game to call that function. So we need to set something up within our player controller script to be able to restart the game. And it's going to be a very, very straightforward thing that we have to add here. So we go into our player controller in here, and then after the end of our update loop, so after this close bracket or close curly bracket, but before the last one, we're going to make a little space here, and we're going to use a void on collision enter 2D, and then in brackets collision 2D other. Oh, only one R in other. Okay, so we haven't used this little function yet, but this is something that's built into Unity. If we make some open and closing curly brackets, this is a function that's built into Unity, and basically what it says is when one object with a box collider touches against another object with a box collider. It's something similar to how we used is touching layers before, but there's a few different variables you can use. You can use like on collision stay is for when two objects stay touching each other, and on collision exit is when two objects stop touching each other. So there's a few different ones like that. There's also, you can use on trigger enter, on trigger stay, and on trigger exit, and those are functions that we're going to use in the future as well, but for now we're just using on collision enter 2D. And basically what it does is it takes in, it goes from, so we have our player controller script is attached to our player, and what it says is, okay, we're doing it on collision, and within this bracket here we're getting what is the other thing that we're colliding with. And the way we can check what that other thing is we go if other that game object dot tag. So the tag is something that we haven't used yet in the game. If we go back in here and we go to our player or any object, you can see by default every object has a tag up here, and every object is just tagged as untagged. And tagging an object is essentially just a way to make it very quick to be able to detect what an object is. So much like we can use layers to find out what layer something is, we can give unique tags to certain kinds of objects. So if we click on the drop down, we can see there's a few default ones added. So we've got a respawn, finish, main camera, the player, game controller, stuff like this. Is the main camera? Oh, the main camera is the only one that's tagged by default, yes. So we can tag things, and it'll make it easier to find what an object is. So if we're in our on collision enter and we're looking for a certain tag, so what we would say is other.gameObject.tag is equal to, say what we're going to use to kill our player will be a tag called killbox. So that's how we know, oh no, killbox, not Nox, killbox. So that's how we'll know that our player is touching against another object that has been tagged as a killbox. So if we go back here and we just go to the children of our main camera, we have our catcher object that's down here. That is what our players run into to keep him safe. And as you can see, it hasn't been tagged as anything. But now we're going to give it the killbox tag. So we're going to go to this drop down here. We're going to go to add tag. And this will open up. We have layers and sorting layers, all this stuff here. So, and our tags one is open by default. And that list is empty because although there is a few tags already set up, they're just default Unity ones. We haven't added anything new yet. So if we go to this plus, click on that, and then in here we're going to type in killbox. And we have to make sure that the way we type it in here is the exact same as we put in the script here. Because the exact same capitalization and everything, or else it won't detect it properly. So now that we've created this tag, we'll go back to our catcher object, and we have to select it down here because it isn't automatically given to the object. So now we go back into our script. So now we'll be able to know that the object we're touching is this box down here. So within some curly brackets here, we're going to need to call the restart game routine of the game manager. And to be able to access the game manager within this script here, we need to know what that is. So if we go back up the top to where all our variables are, we're going to say here public game manager. So we're looking for the game manager, and we're just going to call this variable the game manager without that capital A in the middle. So now we'll be able to know what the game manager is. So then down here we can say the game manager dot restart game. So we're going to save that. And now if we pop back in, now we should have the basics of our little system working for us. There's a few things we're going to fix up with this, but we can just see it, an example of how it works first. So on our player now that we've created a game manager variable, we need to slot that in here. So we'll grab our game manager and put that in there. And now if we hit play, what should happen as we're going along, we're running and jumping over things, and we hit the ground, and it restarts. So we're restarting back to the start, but as you can see, we're getting a little bit of a problem here. There's no platform here to start off with, and every time if we just pause this here for a second, so look at all these this mess of platforms we've got here now. So basically what's happening is every time we get back to here, our platform generator is getting reset back to here, and so it's back before the platform generation point, so it starts making a whole load more. But all of these platforms here, they're not getting caught by the platform destruction point, which is at the left. It's because it's only getting to about here, and then it's creating all these new guys. But we've also got the problem that our first couple of platforms are being destroyed, and they're not being regenerated because they're never regenerated. So what we need to do just to solve that problem first is these first platforms that are created, these guys are just going to be permanently in the game. We're not going to worry about them at all. So if we highlight the two of them there, and we just go to our platform destroyer script, and we're just going to remove that component. So now these guys will always be here, so we won't have to worry about them getting auto-generated or auto-destroyed. So if we just go again here, you see we'll kill ourselves. Okay, so they're still safe there. If we just move on a little bit so that we see platforms being destroyed, see other platforms are being destroyed behind us, but our platform script is not being destroyed behind us at all. So that's perfect. That's perfectly fine. But we've still got the problem of all those other platforms being created, which is the last thing that we want happening at all. So the way we're going to solve that is it's actually relatively straightforward. What we're going to do is every time the player gets killed, we're just going to search for any of the platforms that have the platform destruction component added to them. So if we just play here quickly, we can see these objects that are created, all of these guys have the platform destroyer script. So we know that any object apart from these first two is always going to have the platform destroyer script attached to it. So we know that they can be gotten rid of, but we won't have to worry about these guys getting rid of. So basically we'll just say, okay, all the platforms that have that script attached to them, just delete all them. Or as we do with for our object pooling, not delete them, but just set them as inactive. So in our game manager, we're going to need to use an array here, which is what we're going to use for holding all those platforms, so we know how to erase all of them. So we're just going to say a private array of platform destroyers. So we use the platform destroyer script, and we make it an array by putting our 2 square brackets at the end of it, and we're going to call this our platform list. And then down in our enumerator, what we're going to say is after our wait for a couple of seconds, so we know that like they don't get deleted straight away when the player dies, because we don't want all those platforms to disappear as soon as you fall off the screen and then you wait for a couple of seconds and then you get teleported back. No, we want them to wait, the platforms all to be destroyed at essentially the same time as the player gets moved back to the start. So we can actually wait till just after the player gets moved back to the start. No, we'll do it just before the player gets moved. Actually, would make more sense. And we're just going to say platform, our platform list. Oop, if I could spell it. Platform list, which is the array we just created, is equal to find objects, and objects with the S, objects of type, and then in our pointy brackets we're going to say platform destroyer, because that's what we know all those objects have, and we put two normal brackets at the end there. And basically what that'll do is say, okay, the array of platform list, that has to be just all of the platforms that exist already. So if we just do an example of that very quickly, we'll just let this run. Once it gets going, here we go. So, and basically as soon as I die, like that, okay, I pause the game now. So all those platforms are still there, but in our game manager, we go to debug here and we go to platform list. Okay, they haven't been caught just yet, but we'll knock the frames on a little bit. There we go. So now we can see all those platforms have been found. So it knows where all of those guys are. So what we're going to do is go through that array of objects and set them all as inactive, much like we've done before with when we've used arrays previously. So we're going to say in here, for int I equals 0. So that's setting up the for loop like we did before. So we have once an I value that starts at 0, and while that I value is less than the platform list dot length, so how many objects are in our platform list, and as long as that is true, we're adding 1 to I every single time. And so then within our loop, we're just saying on our platform list, whatever object is at position I, so position 0 to start off with, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. What we're doing is getting the game object that's attached to that, and we're setting that to, we're saying set active false. So that'll basically make the object go invisible again, and it'll be returned back into our object pool. So we're going to save that, and then we're going to pop back into the game here, and once that's going, once it's finished compiling down there, now we should play, and we should see that as we're running along, okay, so there's a whole bunch of platforms being created there. I just killed myself. They're all gone, and there's some new ones back now. The other ones are gone, the new ones are back. So as we can see, our platforms are being destroyed, and everything's working nicely for our player. So as I said before, the only other thing we need to make sure of is that our player's speed is getting reset back to the start every time. And the way we can do that is very straightforward. We're just going to create a store for our speed. So we'll do a private float move speed store, and private float speed milestone count store. And all we're going to do is, what's going on? Oh, I spelled private wrong. I could see there was something strange going on there for a second. Private, there we go. And basically at the end of our start loop here, we're just going to say our move speed store is equal to move speed, and our speed milestone count, we could set it to be just in speed increase milestone, but we'll just set it to actually no, sure, our speed increase milestone is being set straight away. What am I doing? I'm doing the wrong thing here altogether. Our speed milestone count is being set by our speed increase milestone. Yeah, we're extending the length of the speed increase milestone. We are. So I do need to do this. Yes, I was thinking the right thing. Yes, so our speed milestone count store is equal to speed milestone count. So there we go. So we have those two set up by default, and then all we do is when our player is being restarted, so right here, we just say our move speed is reset back to move speed store. Actually, we'll do this right after that function is called. So just like that. And then our speed milestone count is equal to speed milestone count store. So now when the player gets reset back to the start, his speed will be set back to normal and everything will be working just okay for him. So if we go to our player here, and we hit play, we're walking along. Okay, we hit our first speed milestone, kill ourselves. They're not being reset. Our speed milestone count was reset, but our speed is, sorry, the multiplier isn't being reset, that's the thing. Oh, and our milestone amount isn't being reset. That's what's not being reset. I knew something else should have been changing. So we need to do our speed increase milestone. We need to create a store value for that as well. So our public float speed increase milestone store. So we need to do the exact same thing here. Speed increase milestone store is equal to speed increase milestone, and then down here we will say speed increase milestone is equal to speed increase milestone store. So there we go. Now our player will be able to reset perfectly fine, and he'll be able to keep up his speed and all that fun stuff. So just to make sure, we always have to test these things to make sure that they're all working the way we think they should be. Well, that should be a private value, not a public one. I'll change that in a second. That won't have any effect on the gameplay itself. So we're just going to make it to a second milestone if we can. We walking along. Okay, we've hit a second milestone, so we kill ourselves and we get reset back to the start. And our speed increase milestone is staying the same. That doesn't seem right. Why is that? Oh, because I'm just setting it to itself. That's why. That doesn't make any sense. Just quickly, I'll change this up here to be private as well, because we don't want to. There's no need to be able to change that because that's going to be automatically set. This is why you test things. This is why you always ensure that you test everything out to make sure it's working perfectly fine, and making sure that you're setting things to be equal to the right things. So now this time we're going to hit a milestone, and this should be, after we kill ourselves, this should be set back to 50. So if we hit one left, there we go. Okay, we'll just let ourselves die. There we go. It's set back to 50. Everything's reset back to the first starting off value, just like we wanted it to be. So there you go. That's how to die and reset your player back to the start every single time. So in the next episode, we're going to take a look at adding some more interesting stuff to the screen. So we're going to add a way for the player to get score as they're walking along, which will be generated just by how far the player reaches. And we're going to add, in the future, we're going to add pickups and stuff like that, so you can get more points as you go along. But for now, we're just going to add how to start the basics of getting your score going and how to have the basics of having a high score system as well. So yes, thanks for watching this episode. I will be back soon with more Endless Runner goodness. And in the meantime, keep making your Endless Runner game awesome. Thanks for checking out this episode, and if you want even more Games Plus James goodness, make sure you hit those subscribe and like buttons. You can also find me on Twitter and Facebook by following the links on screen, where you can find out all the latest news about the channel. And if you want to help support the show, check out the Patreon page, where you can get exclusive content in return for helping make the channel even better. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.